know, things like computers or some kind of technology that you don't necessarily need. These are the basics. These are gas prices, the things you need to get from one place to another. It's food prices on staples like bread, like butter, like corn. So is everyone affected, essentially?
Everyone is affected. I mean, this is what you need to live and move. 3 out of 10 dollars spent in the U.S. goes either to food or to gas prices to make our cars and buses go. And absolutely, as you mentioned, Asian economies are behind this. You know, you have 3 billion people in China, India, Brazil, Indonesia, even Russia, who are entering the global middle class. And when you enter the global middle class, you start consuming a lot more food. As demand rises, prices are going to rise because we don't yet have the supply to keep up with it. And so that's exactly what's causing the problem.
But does that mean that it could be more of a long-term problem than we expect? Because the Federal Reserve right now is in a bit of a debate over this. They can't even really decide whether to call it inflation or not. They don't normally look at commodities or just the normal ebb and flow. And, you know, they're also saying that worst case scenario, this is going to be a short-term, a temporary problem. But if this really is this kind of global economic shift where there's always going to be this higher demand, then does that mean we can expect these prices to continuously rise?
Right. You set it up perfectly. I mean, the Fed is used to seeing food and oil prices, gas prices, and sort of moving like this. It goes up 20%, then it goes down 20%, and up 20%. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to attach your long-term monetary policy to something that's just going to look really, you know, just like a sine curve. But a lot of people are saying this isn't like every other time that food and gas prices have gone up. This is different. This is being caused by a worldwide change of the type of people that are buying food and gas. This middle class that's emerging in Brazil and India and Russia, and so they're saying this is something different. The Fed is used to basing its long-term monetary policy on what's called core inflation, which specifically disregards food and gas. But a lot of people are now saying, look, this is a different circumstance. Maybe we need to have a monetary policy that takes into account rising inflation in the medium and long term.
I'm just curious, though, you know, there's also been a lot of talk, of course, of speculation when it comes to food prices. So how much do you think that plays a role here?
It could play a role. There's definitely an argument that the Fed has been loose with money in order to bring down interest rates in the U.S. And as they're being loose with money and sort of giving banks a lot of cash and saying invest wherever you want, the banks are saying, well, look, where do we know prices are going to rise, and where can we bet? We know prices are going to rise for oil, gas, food, because all these people are entering the global middle class. So it's definitely possible that we're seeing speculation in food, commodities, gas, the same way as we saw speculation in the mid-2000s. At the same time, you know, the Federal Reserve isn't ready to completely wholesale change the way that it looks at food and gas inflation.
What is the Federal Reserve supposed to do, though, right? Typically, if you have a situation where there's inflation, what the Federal Reserve does is they just raise interest rates, and right now they're incredibly low. But our economy also is, you know, you may say it's not in a recession anymore, but it has not recovered by any means, at least not in a full way. So what do they do here?
Right. I mean, the Federal Reserve wants to, you know, they're in charge of two things. They're in charge of inflation, and they're also in charge of employment. Unemployment's still near 10%, and there's a lot of people on the sidelines who are waiting to get a job. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to go after higher interest rates. You know, what you might see is a political pressure on another body in Washington, the White House or Congress, to do something about giving middle-class folks relief in terms of unleashing some of our reserve oil, maybe giving people some break at the pump. You know, whatever they can do in order to keep their favorability ratings high.
Well, it seems to me like they have bigger problems going on right now, the White House and Congress, because we're basically on the brink of perhaps another government shutdown here in the U.S. And how would that affect the economy, right? Because, I mean, we talk about the fact that, sure, federal workers are going to have to take some unpaid leave. But at the same time, there are a lot of businesses that are going to be affected because of that. A lot of shop owners, people are here for the Cherry Blossom Festival, like I mentioned. That's not going to be going on anymore. So down the road, can that even, you know, put us back into a recession if this government shutdown happens?
Right. On the one hand, the government shutdown, if it lasts, say, 10 days, 15 days, 20 days, as it did in 1995, 1996, you know, that's going to have some sort of effect. It's going to, you know, people are going to have less money, they're going to have less money to spend, and a lot of this is going to be concentrated in the Washington, D.C. area, which has been pretty economically safe. But I don't expect, actually, the government shutdown, if there is one, first of all, to last very long, second of all, to have any sort of meaningful impact on the recovery. I mean, you're going to see a situation where Boehner, Obama, Reid, they're going to get together. They're going to find some sort of deal that's going to cut about $30 billion, maybe up to $40 billion this year. And the government's going to be back on track, and we're going to have the same problems that we had to begin with.
Do you think that that's going to make them more likely to raise the debt ceiling, though? Finally, the Republicans got this whole symbolic stand that they took out of the way, and they'll actually raise the debt ceiling? But Geithner is now saying perhaps May 16th is the day.
Yeah, maybe. I actually hadn't thought of the idea that the Tea Party might have said, well, we've spent our making a stand ammunition, now we can raise the debt ceiling. The fact is the debt ceiling has to be raised no matter what. We're not going to default on our debt. No one's going to stand by that. The debt ceiling is going to go up. The question is what sort of deal is going to be around that in order to facilitate it.
And of course the question is, should we have one?
Upon checking out, the gal asked me what I was doing with so much food, and I said, there's an economic collapse coming to this country. Plan now. And she laughed. She actually thought that was funny. Here's the point. There are people out there that we can't help and don't want to help themselves. But as for the rest of us, buy storable food now. It remains cheap at this very moment in time, despite the meteoric rise in price of wheat, up 54% since June. Sugar's up 114%, and corn is up 79%, along with most other commodities, including silver. Buy food now for storage. This instant. Go tonight, tomorrow. Buy food in any amount you are able to buy it. Just as silver was cheap 1 year ago at $14.32 an ounce, food is cheap today compared to what it will cost 1 year hence, and perhaps much, much sooner.
Do you have any food reserves in your home right now? How long could you provide food for your family if the food supply was cut off? A month? A week? 3 days? Wouldn't you feel better if you had the necessary reserves? Have you ever noticed that the more advanced we get, the less prepared we are? Many things that defined life only 100 years ago are so convenient today that we don't really think about what would happen if that convenience were gone. Consider how we get our food. We just go down to the grocery store and grab a few things. But what if something happened that interrupted the food supply to the store? How long would it take for the shelves to be wiped out? What would you do? How long could you and your family survive? You know, for all the other important things in our lives, we have a variety of professionals, from mechanics to doctors, to help cover our bases. Why don't we also have a food professional? Food is our greatest dependency. Yet most of us find ourselves unprepared for the uncertainties that lie ahead. Why take chances? Why not do something about it? You've already taken the first step. Keep moving forward with this tour, and we can help you put a plan together and even show you how to get your food for free.